There were still 3 ice cubes floating in her glass when I got up and left. She hadn't even noticed. She was too busy twirling her hair, fake laughing at something he said, and leaning in like they were rehearsing a scene in a romance movie no one asked to watch. It was 2:17 p.m. I know that because I checked my phone before sliding the folded napkin onto the edge of the table, not toward her, not toward him, just in that awkward no man's land between salt and pepper. I didn't need to wait for her to read it. She wouldn't. She never looked at me once. Not even when I walked in. Not even when I sat at the bar exactly 11 feet away. I counted. Not even when I paid for their drinks. Yes, I paid. I don't even know why I did that. Maybe to prove something. Maybe to remind her I was still there. Or maybe, and this is the part that makes my stomach crawl, maybe because I knew it would be the last thing I ever paid for on her behalf. The napkin said, "Don't come home. You're free now." That was it. That was my grand moment. No yelling. No confrontation. Just a quiet exit, a sick heart, and a walk back to my car that felt like the longest walk of my life. I didn't cry, because that would have made it real. I just stared straight ahead like some broken movie character and turned the key in the ignition like I had somewhere to be. The truth is, I had nowhere to be anymore. What happened next, though, what Marin did after that napkin, that's the part that'll stay with me forever. Because I thought I was being dignified, mature, clean. She turned it into a performance. And I became the punchline. I parked 3 blocks away from our house like a coward. Or maybe like someone who still wanted to believe there was a version of this nightmare that didn't end with me moving into my cousin's attic and learning to microwave oatmeal for dinner. I didn't go straight home. I circled. I walked. I kicked a fire hydrant and scared a dog. I gave myself every excuse not to go back. Because part of me still thought, just maybe she'd call. Or chase me. Or feel something. She didn't. When I finally walked through the door, the silence hit me first. Not the usual silence, the good kind, where you know the person you love is just upstairs folding laundry or reading under a lamp. No. This silence was thick. Hollow. Evacuated. Our house didn't feel like ours anymore. It felt like a museum display of a marriage that had already died. And there it was. My note. Not the napkin. I left that in the cafe. This was a new one. Hers. Placed dead center on the kitchen table with the kind of precision she usually reserved for place settings at Thanksgiving. It was written in her handwriting, but colder, controlled, like someone had held her wrist and guided the pen. You always wanted the truth. Now you have it. I'm staying with him. Don't contact me unless it's legal. Marin. No emotion. No apology. Just a signed-off betrayal like it was a business transaction. I stood there with my mouth open, my stupid work bag still slung over one shoulder, staring at the same counter where she used to kiss me while I made coffee. My chest physically hurt. I mean, it hurt, like something sharp was lodged between my ribs and every breath scraped against it. And then, stupidly, I walked into the bedroom. That's when it really hit. The closet was empty on her side. Every hanger gone. The drawers were open, just enough to show they were not full anymore. Her favorite mug was gone from the kitchen rack. The photo of us in Maine? The one where we both looked kind of windblown and ridiculous, but so happy. That was still on the shelf, but the frame was empty. She took the photo. She left the shell. I just stood there like an idiot and whispered, "You took everything except the dust." But the worst part? The real punch to the gut? She posted a picture online that same night. I didn't go looking for it. It came to me. My friend Trevor texted me around 9 p.m. Hey, man, is this Marin? I opened it. There she was. Not crying. Not sorry. Not hiding. Smiling. Wearing the same jacket she wore to the cafe that day, wrapped around the shoulders of that guy, the guy with the scarf. Her head tilted on his. Both of them holding glasses of wine like they were celebrating something. Like I had never existed. Like I was the interruption, not the betrayal. And the caption? No more pretending. Just happiness now. She wasn't sad. She was free. Like I'd been holding her hostage in a marriage I bent over backwards to maintain while she quietly plotted the escape. And not only that, she posted it on her public profile with tags. She wanted people to see. She wanted it to be known. I wasn't just blindsided. I was erased. And still, even then, I thought, maybe I overreacted. Maybe I was too dramatic. Maybe I drove her away. But then, 2 days later, I got a message that changed everything. It was from someone I hadn't heard from in years. And what he told me made me realize the cafe was just the final scene. The betrayal started long before that. I hadn't spoken to Gavin in over 5 years. We used to work together at a marketing agency in Chicago before I left to do freelance IT work, and even back then, we weren't exactly close. Just two guys who shared a cubicle wall and occasionally grabbed a beer on Fridays when no one else was around. So when his name popped up in my inbox at 2:11 a.m., I thought it had to be a mistake. Or spam. Or maybe he was trying to sell me crypto. But the subject line was short and unmistakable. I need to tell you something about Marin. My whole body went cold. I didn't want to open it. I didn't want more pain. I already had enough for a lifetime. But of course I did. I clicked it. My heart in my throat. Inside was one paragraph. That's all it took. Lowell, I'm sorry for dumping this on you, but I saw the photo Marin posted and I felt sick. I didn't know she was still married to you. About a year ago, she and this guy, he said his name was Joel, came to a party at my buddy's apartment. They were all over each other. Marin told everyone she was recently divorced. She said her ex was some clingy IT guy who couldn't let go. I didn't connect the dots back then, but now I realize she was talking about you. I read that paragraph 5 times, maybe 6, just staring at it like it would eventually morph into something more digestible. Like there was a version of that message where I wasn't being called a joke in a room full of strangers, where I wasn't reduced to a punchline with a job title. Some clingy IT guy. That's how she described me. After I supported her through her failed teaching credential. After I spent nights on hold with her insurance company when she got pneumonia and didn't know how to fill out the forms. After I rearranged our entire budget so she could go on that writing retreat in Arizona she said would reignite her creativity. I was the guy who couldn't let go, and she'd already introduced herself as divorced. A year ago, that meant she didn't just fall into Joel's arms after our marriage started falling apart. She had been laying the bricks for her escape while I was still folding her laundry and asking if she wanted tea before bed. My hands were shaking. Not from rage. Not even from heartbreak anymore. From sheer disbelief. She'd rewritten the story while I was still living in it. I wanted to call her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to forward the email and ask, "So this is who I was to you?" But I didn't. Because I knew it wouldn't change anything. She was already gone. She didn't just leave physically. She'd mentally, emotionally, and socially removed me from her life before she ever packed a suitcase. So I did the one thing I knew how to do. I started digging. I went through our old shared accounts. Photos, emails, archived messages. And that's when I found something that made my blood run completely still. A receipt. Hidden in the depths of her email folder, buried under newsletters and junk. 2 plane tickets. Booked 8 months ago. To Paris. For her and Joel. They had gone. They already went. A 2-week trip. Right around the time she told me she was helping her cousin after a nervous breakdown. I remembered how worried she acted, how she cried on the phone pretending to be exhausted, how I told her I'd cover all the bills that month and to just focus on family first. I covered everything while she sipped wine under the Eiffel Tower with her affair partner. I had been funding the fantasy. I staggered back from the screen, sat on the floor, and let out the weakest sound I've ever made. Not even a cry, just a wheeze of humiliation. That's the only word I have for what I felt. Humiliation. I wasn't a man grieving his wife. I was a fool discovering he'd unknowingly helped her build a new life without him. And the worst part? There was more. Because if she lied about the trip, what else had she staged behind my back? The next clue I found didn't just shake me. It made me sick to my stomach. Because it involved someone I knew. Someone I trusted. And suddenly, I realized Marin's betrayal wasn't just about love or lust. It was strategic. And I was surrounded. There's a kind of dizziness that doesn't come from spinning or standing up too fast. It comes from realization. The moment your brain finally connects threads you didn't even know existed, and the picture it makes is worse than anything you imagined. That was me, hunched over my laptop in a hoodie that smelled like 3 days of sweat and coffee, staring at a new browser tab like it had just spit on me. It started when I searched Marin's name online. Not on her obvious social media accounts. Those were already scrubbed of anything related to me. No, I went deeper. I checked old forums, accounts she never bothered to delete, links we'd used together years ago to plan vacations or review restaurants. I wasn't expecting much, just fragments. But then I found a blog. Not a public one. A hidden one. It used a different name. Rin Rambles. But the writing? It was her voice. I would have known it blindfolded. I read one post, then another, and by the third, I was shaking again. She had been writing about me. About us. Only it wasn't us. It was a grotesque caricature. She called me L. She said I was emotionally absent. Said I was obsessive. Said I would track her every move and guilt her into staying. She painted me as this shadowy, pathetic figure who cried during sitcoms and panicked if she went to the grocery store without texting first. She made me sound like a joke, like someone people should pity, or worse, mock. And the comments? That's where the true sting came in. Dozens of people, strangers, laughing, egging her on. You deserve better, Rin. Sounds like L is just dead weight. Get out while you're still young. I scrolled for what felt like hours, looking for one person to say, "Are you sure this is fair to your husband?" But no, she had built an entire little cheering section around her betrayal, and I had no idea. But it didn't end there. Because in one of the more recent posts, dated just a month before the Café incident, she wrote about how the ending needs to be clean, poetic, and irreversible. She even outlined it, step by step. She wrote about the perfect way to break a codependent dynamic. That's what she called our marriage. She listed things like, stage it in public so there's no room for manipulation. Document the relief afterward, a photo, a post, something solid. Control the narrative. Leave before he reacts. I wasn't a husband to her anymore. I was an experiment. But the real slap across the face? One of the usernames in the comments was familiar. Not like, I've seen this name on the internet, familiar. No, I knew it. It was Jules, our neighbor. The same Jules who once brought us a casserole when Marin had the flu. The same Jules who I once helped install a new smoke detector because her boyfriend was out of town. The same Jules who sat next to Marin at our last anniversary dinner and said, 11 years? That's real love right there. I clicked her profile. There were likes, shares, private messages between them, and one line burned into my brain like acid. If he finally walks away, you know you can stay here. I've got wine, Wi-Fi, and no judgment. She was part of it. Jules had been in on it, helping her stage this behind my back like it was some kind of indie drama where the fragile woman finds her wings and the sad husband fades out of frame. I wanted to scream, not just at Marin, at everyone. At Jules, at those anonymous commenters, at the version of myself who thought being quiet and patient made me a good man. I wasn't a good man. I was a doormat with Wi-Fi and a retirement fund. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. Because that very night, after I'd spent hours reading the worst version of myself penned by the person I loved most, there was a knock at the door. Not a gentle one. Not a hey, I'm here to return something kind of knock. It was confident, bold, like someone who knew they were allowed to be there. I opened it, still wearing that hoodie, still smelling like coffee and heartbreak. And there she was, Marin, holding her phone, smiling. And behind her, a camera crew, a real one. I didn't understand at first. I thought maybe she was doing some project, something for a client. But no, she looked me right in the eye and said, calmly, like she was asking about the weather, "Don't freak out. This is just for a segment we're doing. About reclaiming your identity after codependent relationships. It's kind of your side of the story too. You'll come off as sweet. Trust me." And then she stepped into my house. With the cameras. Like she still lived there. Like she still owned the air. I wish I could say I slammed the door. I wish I could say I told her to get the hell out. But what I actually did was worse. I stood there, frozen, and let it happen. Because I was so numb, so disoriented, I couldn't even remember where my voice went. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was a spectacle. And I was the punchline she'd been rehearsing all along. She walked into our, sorry, my house like it was a set. Like every detail had already been blocked and choreographed. The way she placed her phone on the kitchen island, propped up against a coffee mug. The way she introduced the cameraman with a sing-song voice, calling him Wesley, my visual magician. The way she turned to me and said, "Lowell, seriously, don't look so tense. This is going to help people. It's going to help you." Help me? She thought this would help me? I didn't even know where to start. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I stood there, same hoodie, same unshaven face, same dumb expression of disbelief I'd been wearing since the cafe, watching my wife treat the ruins of our marriage like a content opportunity. The guy with the camera was already circling, checking lighting near the windows, angling shots toward the couch where Marin now sat cross-legged like she was on some late-night talk show. I watched her brush her hair behind her ear, tilt her chin up slightly, and glance at her phone with a quick, professional flick of her thumb. I finally found my voice. "Get out." She looked up, confused, as if I was the one being unreasonable. Lowell, come on. I told you. It's just a segment. It's not even going to mention your name. I just need the footage of where I used to feel trapped. It's symbolic. You're part of that. No, I said. I'm not part of anything anymore. You made damn sure of that. She stood slowly, her expression flat. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to close the loop. This is healing. You should be proud I'm doing it peacefully. I laughed. Actually laughed. That bitter, broken laugh you let out when your brain runs out of ways to process reality. You cheated. You lied. You staged the fallout. And now you're filming your ex-husband in his own house like he's some wounded animal in a nature documentary. Peacefully. She didn't even flinch. Lowell, I've moved on. You should too. This doesn't have to be messy. Messy? It was already carnage. But she didn't care. To her, this wasn't real life, it was content. A viral moment. Another piece of her carefully managed persona. She didn't come back to make peace. She came back to finish the story. To capture her final scene before closing the book and walking away to applause. I looked at Wesley. He was still filming, like this was all normal. Like watching a man unravel in his own living room was just part of the job. I turned back to Marin. You need to go. Now. She rolled her eyes. God, this is exactly what I wrote about. This energy. You never learned how to let go. That did it. I stepped forward, grabbed her phone off the counter, and held it up. You want content? Here's your ending. Then I dropped it, screen first, onto the tile floor. It cracked. Deeply. Satisfyingly. For a moment, neither of them moved. She stared at it like I had just insulted a sacred relic. Then she whispered, You're pathetic. Maybe, I said. But I'm not yours anymore. And I'm not your backdrop. So get out. Before I remind you this place is still in my name. They left. No shouting. No dramatic exit music. Just silence. That kind of silence that makes your ears ring. I locked the door, turned off all the lights, and sank to the floor in the hallway like someone had pulled the plug on whatever life I had left. I sat there for hours. Couldn't move. Couldn't cry. Couldn't think. And then, my phone buzzed. One notification. You've been tagged in a video. I opened it. It was already uploaded. Not by her. By Wesley. A clip titled, When You Reclaim Your Power in the House That Held You Hostage. I watched myself, standing there like a ghost. Her voice narrating over slow piano music. Talking about freedom, growth, and how some people cling to pain like its purpose. The video blurred my face. But I knew it was me. Everyone who knew me would know. And the comments? Already flooding in. She's so brave. This is the kind of closure we all need. Men like that are exactly why women stay silent for too long. I wasn't just erased now. I was being rewritten as the villain in a story I didn't even know she was telling. And that's when I realized I wasn't dealing with a heartbreak. I was dealing with a campaign. But the story wasn't over yet. Because the one person I thought was on my side? Yeah, he reached out next. And what he had to say, it changed everything. It was 2:42 in the morning when my phone rang again. I was still wide awake, of course. After that video went live, there was no chance I could sleep. I'd been sitting in bed, phone in hand, reading the comments like a masochist, watching strangers call me controlling, weak, manipulative, toxic, words Marin had never said to my face but had apparently said to hundreds, maybe thousands of people who now thought they knew me. I wasn't a person anymore. I was a symbol, a shadow cast by her spotlight. The screen lit up. Name, Noel. That made my stomach twist in a whole new way. Noel was my oldest friend. Best man at my wedding. The kind of guy who knew all my passwords, my shoe size, the exact story of how I chipped my tooth playing high school football. He was the only person I hadn't spoken to since everything started unraveling. He'd been quiet, too quiet. I picked up. I didn't say anything at first. Just waited. He spoke first. Lowell, hey, I need to talk to you, man. His voice cracked. That's when I knew something was wrong. Noel doesn't crack. Talk, I said. He sighed hard, like he was preparing to punch himself in the gut. Then he said it. I didn't know it would go this far. I didn't think she'd actually do all this. I swear to God, I thought it was just a fling. A mistake. A one-time thing. But it wasn't. And now she's got the whole world hating you, and I feel sick. I didn't understand at first. My brain couldn't compute the words. What do you mean? I asked, but I already knew. Deep down, I already knew. I'm the reason she met him. Joel. The guy from the cafe. They met at a party I brought her to. It was my friend's birthday thing in the city. I thought I was doing her a favor, getting her out of the house, helping her feel human again. You were working so much back then, and she was always just, kind of gray. I didn't think it would turn into that. But she latched onto him, and I didn't stop it. I didn't say anything, and I should have. My hands started shaking. You brought her to him? I said, barely recognizing my own voice. I didn't know, Lowell. I didn't know they'd keep meeting. And when I found out, she begged me not to tell you. Said she was finding herself, said you'd only spiral if you knew. She made me feel like telling you would be cruel. And I was stupid enough to believe her. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My throat was locked shut. He kept talking. And then the blog, she showed it to me months ago. Said she was writing fiction. That it wasn't about you, just inspired by patterns in her past relationships. I told myself that if it wasn't about you directly, it wasn't my place to interfere. He paused again, then dropped the real bomb. She asked me to be in the video, Lowell, the one she filmed in your house. Said it would look more authentic if I showed up near the end and acted like the supportive friend. I said no. That's why she brought Wesley. But I didn't warn you. I knew she was planning something, and I didn't warn you. It felt like the room tilted sideways. I wasn't even angry. Not yet. I was just hollow. My oldest friend had watched the woman I loved burn my life down, and he handed her matches and kindling because she told him it was empowering. Noel, I said, slowly, carefully, do you understand what you did to me? I do now, he whispered. And I'll never forgive myself. We sat in silence. Then he said, she's planning something else. I overheard her talking to Jules a few nights ago. They were planning a second wave, something about a podcast interview, airing out the private layers of your marriage. She said people were begging for more after the video. I think she's going to take it further, Lowell. She wants to make this a brand. That word hit me harder than anything else. A brand. I was no longer just a footnote in her personal journey. I was marketable. I was something to be unwrapped, dissected, and monetized by people who didn't even know what my favorite song was, or how I once wrote her a letter for every week she was gone visiting her mother. I ended the call without saying goodbye. The next morning, I went through every drawer, every shelf, every cabinet in the house. I made a list of what was missing. Not just items, memories. She took all our wedding cards. She took the journal we wrote together in our first year. She even took the framed quote I painted for her when she was struggling with imposter syndrome. You're enough, even when the world feels too big. Gone. Like it never happened. I sat down at the kitchen table, pulled out my laptop, and opened a blank document. Not to vent. Not to whine. But to document. I started writing down everything. Dates. Messages. The flight receipt. Gavin's email. Noel's confession. A detailed timeline of every red flag I'd ignored. If Marin was going to turn this into a platform, I was going to make sure she didn't control the narrative completely. But even as I typed, I knew something was still missing. A piece of the puzzle that hadn't quite surfaced. And it finally came the next evening, delivered in a small padded envelope from an address I didn't recognize. Inside was a flash drive. No return name. No note. Just a single label written in black Sharpie. Watch alone. I nearly dropped it. Because whatever was on that drive, I could feel it. It was going to change everything. I must have held that flash drive in my hand for 10 full minutes before I even considered plugging it in. My thoughts ran wild. Was it more footage from the so-called documentary she filmed in our house? Was it another twisted episode in the circus she was turning into her own miniseries? Or was it something worse, something illegal, something calculated, something she could blackmail me with? But the label, watch alone, it wasn't threatening. It felt like a whisper, a warning, or maybe a rescue. I finally walked over to the old laptop in my closet, the one Marin didn't touch, the one not connected to anything cloud-based or synced. I opened it, took a deep breath, and clicked the file. There was only one, a single video, titled, Before She Knew You'd Leave. The footage began with Marin. I froze. Her voice hit me like a slap, even though she wasn't speaking to me. It looked like a video diary. She was in a hotel room, dressed casually, no makeup, hair pulled back. She looked tired, nervous, alone. And then she started talking. I don't know if I'll ever show this to anyone, she said, laughing quietly. I just need to say it out loud, just once, so I can stop pretending I'm a good person. I blinked hard. She glanced away from the camera and took a deep breath. I started seeing Joel before I told myself I was unhappy. That's the truth. I didn't fall out of love with Lowell. I detached. On purpose. He never did anything wrong. He was just always there. Too kind. Too safe. And I wanted something reckless. Something that felt like it might fall apart at any moment. She shifted on the bed, visibly uncomfortable. I used to dream about what it would feel like to break someone's heart. Isn't that awful? To hold that kind of power. I wondered what it would feel like to be the one walking away instead of begging someone to stay. Joel gave me that. Not love, just leverage. Control. For once, I wasn't the one waiting. And I liked it. I felt like I was watching someone confess to a crime. She wasn't crying. She wasn't remorseful. She was simply unraveling. Quietly. Honestly. In a way she never dared to be with me. I started writing the blog before anything even happened. I made up stories, exaggerated the truth, twisted things Lowell said. At first, it was just writing therapy. But then people started reacting. They told me I was brave. That I was healing. And I liked that. I liked the attention. The validation. She looked up at the camera, finally, her eyes hollow. And when I realized I could build something from this, I leaned into it. I made him the villain. I made myself the survivor. And people bought it. God, they bought it so fast. Even Jules cheered me on. She said it was performance art. That I was a pioneer for wounded women everywhere. She paused, swallowed hard. I don't know if I'm in too deep now. I'm scared that if I stop, I'll have to face what I actually did. What I destroyed. Who I became. And I don't know how to live with that. The screen cut to black. Into video. I sat back in the chair, breathing like I'd just run a marathon in reverse. Everything I'd been trying to piece together in the dark was suddenly laid bare under a spotlight. She wasn't lost. She wasn't misled. She chose it. Every lie. Every twist. Every moment designed to make the world pity her and discard me. I didn't know who had sent it, but someone wanted me to see. I checked the envelope again. Still nothing. But then I remembered something. Noel had mentioned a party, his friend's party, where Joel and Maren first met. He said he didn't know the guy well, just that he was a videographer. Wesley, the cameraman, came later. But this guy? He might have been there from the beginning. I had a name now. And I had a new plan. Because if Maren wanted to make a brand out of my breakdown, I was going to respond the only way I knew how. Not with violence. Not with revenge. But with the truth. And the truth had just landed in my hands like a loaded weapon. So I sent a message. Not to her. Not to Joel. Not to Jules. I sent it to every single person who had liked, commented on, or shared that video of hers. It was a single sentence. You saw the story she sold you. Now here's the footage she never wanted you to see. Attached was the video. No caption. No commentary. Just the unfiltered confession of a woman who thought her secrets were safe. And within hours, everything changed. By the next morning, my inbox was chaos. At first, I thought maybe no one would care. That people would see the video and assume I edited it, or twisted her words, or took things out of context. But I underestimated one thing. People know authenticity when they see it. And Maren's voice, her face, her nervous laughter in that hotel room, it didn't sound like a woman performing. It sounded like someone unraveling under the weight of their own lies. The clip exploded. People started commenting everywhere. On her posts. On the original video. On her podcast teaser she hadn't even launched yet. The narrative cracked wide open, and the same voices that once called me toxic and controlling were suddenly asking a very different question. Why would she record that and keep pretending? This changes everything. I feel sick. We owe that man an apology. Strangers started reaching out. Some sent long messages. Others just wrote, I'm sorry I judged you. Some shared their own stories, how they were made to look like villains in someone else's version of the truth. And I realized I wasn't alone. Not even close. I was just one of thousands of people who'd been twisted into props for someone else's ego trip. I don't know who leaked the video. Maybe it was that original videographer. Maybe someone close to her with a conscience. It doesn't matter. What mattered was that, finally, people saw me. Not the caricature. Not the codependent mess. Me. Maren went dark after that. Deleted her blog. Disabled her comments. She posted one final message. No video this time. Just text. There are things I said and did that I now regret. I'm taking time to reflect and step away from public platforms. I asked for privacy. And that was that. She disappeared from the spotlight she built, right when it got too hot. Jules moved out a week later. Quietly. No goodbye. I heard through someone else she'd been fired from her job for posting mocking relationship commentary under a pseudonym. Turns out she was doing more than just enabling Marin. She was profiting off it too. As for Joel, honestly, I don't care. He was never the story. Just a chapter I'm glad I closed. But here's where it ends differently than I ever imagined. A few months later, I found myself sitting in a coffee shop across from someone new. Her name's Brenna. She's calm in a way that doesn't demand attention. We met at a bookstore, of all places, both reaching for the same obscure crime novel that neither of us had read. She laughed. I panicked. Then I made a joke. She actually laughed back. We're not rushing anything. There's no love bombing, no drama, no cameras. Just peace. She doesn't care about my past. She doesn't need a story to sell. And when I told her everything, she didn't flinch. She just said, people lie to themselves to survive. But you didn't. That says more than anything. I never thought I'd be able to start over. I thought the stain of Marin's version of me would follow me forever. But it didn't. Because when the truth finally came out, I didn't fight with fire. I didn't try to rewrite her fiction. I just let her words burn her own pages. And in the ashes of what she tried to make me, I found myself again. Whole, quiet, free, and finally happy.